because Houston didn't have the league-required 8 players available to take the floor. That's another story entirely. James Harden, among those 8, he was fined $50,000 after the league saw him socializing without a mask this week. Harden took to social media to defend himself because that's what you do. He said he went to an event, not a strip club, to support a friend who had recently been promoted. Goes on to say, quote, "Every day it's something different. No matter how many times people try to drag my name under, you can't. The real always ends up on top." What about the mask? That's not an apology about not wearing a mask. It was that you weren't wearing a mask.
I know Broussard was going first, Jenna, but I got to say something to you because you're the best. Jenna Wolfe is the best because Jenna Wolfe's translation of my friend who recently became a boss was a friend who recently got a promotion at work. I don't think that's actually what happened, but that's how Jenna read it. Like, oh, she became a boss. That's a job promotion. So that's how she read it. You're the best, Jenna. You are the best. Go ahead. I'm like a boss. Like you didn't used to be.
Then let me just say this.
Sorry.
There were other people who read over my scripts before I went on the air. Somebody could have told me that I misunderstood the quote. I tried to paraphrase the best way I knew how.
They wanted us to have this moment. Go ahead, Jenna. Sorry. Go to Broussard. Sorry.
Chris Broussard, there's a lot going on in Houston. There were reports of James Harden throwing balls at other players, that he's angry. There's the COVID stuff that's going on. They couldn't play last night, and now you got James Harden's fine. Is this just the last thing that the Rockets need? I mean, is this what the Rockets can now use to say, you know what, we got to trade him? It's too much already. It's obviously becoming a distraction, and we're just like a game. And they didn't even play the game into this season already.
Not yet. I mean, they said they were willing to get uncomfortable. You can't just crumble at the first sign of discomfort. Hold to your values of what you want in this trade. Now, if somebody's ready to give it to you, then by all means, get rid of James Harden. But don't just sell him for 50 cents on the dollar at this point. Let the season play out a little bit. Let's see what some other teams do. Miami lost to freaking Orlando last night. Denver lost to Sacramento last night. So what if Miami really doesn't look nearly as good as they're expected to over the first 3 weeks? Are they ready to up their offer for James Harden? So let it play out a bit. The COVID stuff, the league will handle that. If he continues to ignore the rules, the league may suspend him or step in and do what they have to do. Beyond that, what bothers me more if I'm Houston is his interaction with his teammates. Now, you mentioned the reports about verbal altercations with teammates, throwing a ball in the direction of one teammate. If he continues to do stuff like that, or maybe worse, to the point where it hinders the team's ability to function on the basketball court, it's messing up practice. We can't get our stuff in. Now it's messing up our preparation and how we function in a game. That's when you might have to move him more quickly. But I'm fine with this. It's going to be uncomfortable for a while.
Nah, it's time to move on right now. You just talked about it. You know, his interaction with his teammates, verbal altercations, throwing balls. Like, you can't do that. There comes a point where you have to put, and you're obligated, and you have a duty to protect everybody else in the organization. One guy can't be bigger than everyone else. So if I'm on that bench, or if I'm one of those coaches, it makes it uncomfortable for me every single day that I walk in the building. And that's just not fair. That's not right. And what ended up happening, the head coach, the general manager, president, the owner, you start losing credibility. Nobody wants to come in an organization like that. Those guys don't want to be there. What's going to end up happening is the other guys are going to ask for a trade. The other guys are going to say, well, I'm not going to play. And that's why it's time for the Houston Rockets to move on from James Harden now. Now, look, I get it. You can't sell a superstar and James Harden for 50 cents on the dollar. You're right there, Chris. But if I'm James Harden, I do what I did back in 2009 when the Jets was trying to trade me from, get me from the Denver Broncos. They were going back and forth with Coach Josh McDaniels, and they were like, oh, we want to offer, you know, a 6th rounder, 7th rounder, and I'm coming off of back-to-back years of catching 100 balls in a season. And our team just called him and was like, look, it's either you're going to get it done or not. Like, we're not going to drag this thing out to the trade deadline deadline. You know my value. Make the offer and let's go. They end up coming back, offering a second rounder, and then also our linebacker Harris. And then they're like, you know what? This is a good deal. But then Josh McDaniels came in and made it tough. But that's what James Harden needs to do. James Harden needs to reach out to the teams he wants to go to and say, make this happen right now, because this is getting toxic and it's bad for everybody and it's bad for the NBA.
All right, so I think both Brandon and Broussard raised valid points. I also think what Jenna said in the lead into this is relevant. So I want to address this first of all. I get it, James. You've had COVID. And given, you know, your activities over the last decade, I imagine you have antibodies for strains of things that haven't even been discovered yet. I get it. You maybe don't personally need the mask. I understand. You are an influential member of society, and we are trying to live in a society. And you have an obligation as a public person not to be a jackass during a global pandemic. That's first of all. And I've always defended James. And I like James. And once upon a time back in Houston, if this video was from 6 years ago, you maybe could have seen me 8 rows over. So I don't like to say this, but it's true. Like, come on, man. Like, this is not how grown-ups who are responsible for the brands of basketball teams, Adidas, many things are supposed to act right now in this moment in America. That's first of all. Second of all is this, and I'll throw it to you, Wilds. James Harden allegedly wants out of Houston because he wants to win a championship. Is this the behavior a championship contender is going to be like, yep, sign me up? That's the missing piece. Or if he actually wants to win a championship, is he actively hurting the interest a championship caliber team would have in it? Like, would the Bulls still give a bunch away because they're awful? Of course. But you want to go to Miami? You want to go to Philly? You want to go to Boston? You want to go to one of these teams that actually maybe could win the title? Does he think they're watching this and like, yeah, that's the influence we want him to have on our young players? That's the influence we want in the locker room? Of course not. So again, what the hell are you doing,
That's a Jenna
man?
take, Nick.
And I've always defended him. I know, but at some point, you got to grow up.
No, it's
and at some
good.
point, you got to, what are you trying, Wilds, what is he trying to accomplish? Like, what is the end game here? Because I don't see it.
Look, I think 99% of what you said was excellent and spot on, except for the one part where maybe you would be hanging out with James Harden 8 rows back. Bro, you're not hanging out with James Harden. I know you lived in Houston. You're not hanging out with, like, maybe, I don't know. Hey, Broussard, that video of Jay-Z, maybe it's the old Kevin Wilds hanging out. Like, you're not going to.
There's only so many clubs in Houston.
Basketball Reference. No, you're reading Basketball Reference in a small room surrounded with LeBron James posters. You're not trying to hang out with James Harden. Let's be totally honest. Broussard, the only pushback I have on the situation, because I really do think that Nick is 99% correct, is this like heated exchange in practice. Oh my gosh, practice? Oh, a heated exchange, and he threw a ball at a teammate that missed the teammate. Oh my gosh, well, good Lord Almighty, he threw a ball that missed the teammate. A, it's called a pass, so you could, if he was really mad at his teammate, he could just give a hard pass, like a 30-foot pass with a guy who's 10 feet away. Second of all, and I hate to be the back in my day guy, but I'm going to do it. Michael Jordan just straight up punched Steve Kerr in the face. Punched him in the face. Like, hey, how you doing, Steve Kerr? Blammo. Right in the face. So the idea that I have only a certain level of consternation that I can go up, and it about ends right here, for throwing the ball in the direction of a rookie. And I'll go so far to say, Broussard, I'm like, oh, that's kind of Jimmy Butler-y. Look at this, little competitive Harden.
It is Jimmy Butler.
I agree with Nick 100%. But the practice stuff doesn't bother me as much as everybody else.
And guess what happened after that infamous Jimmy Butler practice? He got traded.
He went
and now I agree with you. Altercations here or there, it happens all the time in pro sports. We know that. But I'm saying, first of all, Michael Jordan was still playing at that time, right? He was winning on the court. So that's kind of a different situation. But if Harden continues to do this, because that's not really Harden's style. He's more of a laid-back guy, and if he's going out of his way to mess up the chemistry, you can't get anything accomplished in practice because he's acting up. That's what I'm talking about. Now, you also could suspend him for conduct detrimental to the team. So there are a lot of ways you can go into. Nick made a good point. He may be hurting his trade value. It depends on the teams. There are some teams that think, look, we'll get him in here. He's just acting up to get traded. We'll be able to handle him. And some will be able to. Others, this is really turning them off. So it really depends on the GM and the organization.
And just one fact clarification for the story Wildes told about Steve Kerr and Michael Jordan. That actually never happened because that season never happened because that season Jordan lost in the playoffs, and we know that never happened. So he never actually punched Steve Kerr. None of that actually happened. So it was a 1995 year that didn't actually take place. It didn't actually take place, Jenna. So he never actually